Welcome. Please comment where you're watching from in the world. If anyone asks, I will swear this whole thing started because of boredom and bad Wi-Fi. First year at Unilag, I had already sampled the entire male population of my faculty and decided they were all unserious. Either they wanted you to be their second mother or their second phone charger. So one night during exam break, instead of reading, I downloaded every dating app like it was an assignment. Bumble, Hinge, Tinder, the ones you have to change your app store region for. All of them. At first, it was the usual nonsense. Hey dear. Hey beautiful, can I know you? One boy even said, I don't really like texting. Okay, then why are you on the internet, Femi? Then I matched with him. His name was T in the Nigerian army. Clean haircut, broad shoulders in his uniform, one picture with him kneeling next to a very cute brown dog that looked like it had more sense than half the campus. His profile wasn't cringe. He wrote in full sentences. No HWRU in sight. Already impressive. We started chatting on Hinge. It was normal at first. Where are you from? What are you studying? How's school? I was half distracted, answering between reading slides. Then he made me actually laugh. Not fake, face with tears of joy laugh. Real laugh. He said, you Lagos girls like forming soft life. If you see my barracks room, you will cry. It's giving NYSC camp. We kept talking. Moved to iMessage. He called me princess but somehow didn't make it annoying. He'd text good morning before PT. Send pictures of sunrises from some dusty parade ground. He told me stories about training, nothing classified, just enough to make it sound like he lived in an action film where the lighting was always bad. When he got a weekend pass, he came to Lagos. Said he wanted to take me out properly. He showed up to the restaurant early, in a nice shirt, smelling expensive. Tall in real life, not camera angle tall. He'd already ordered me a drink by the time I sat down. Conversation was easy. No horrible silence, no weird comments. When he drove me back to my hostel, he parked, turned off the engine, and just talked. No pressure. No come up, let's just chill. He met the girls on my floor. My loud friend Anita shouted, Soldier man, you fine oh. And he laughed like he was used to that. He texted me when he got home. Let me know when you're safely inside, okay? That little thing melted me more than any sending you 5K for lunch ever could. We started seeing each other whenever he was in town. Cinema, shawarma dates, sometimes just walking around the mall. He brought me flowers once, real ones, not roadside ones dying from heat. He'd pop up at my hostel gate with snacks during exam week. I convinced myself this was what healthy love looked like. Steady, gentle, nothing rushed. One evening we were texting and he said, Do you have Snapchat? I rolled my eyes. LOL, yeah but I don't really use it. That one is for children. Add me Jer, he sent his username. I hesitated, then shrugged. What's the harm? I added him. He popped up immediately with a snap. No caption preview, just his Bitmoji grinning. I wasn't even really thinking. I tapped. It was him. Naked from the waist up, camera propped somewhere. The video was grainy but clear enough. He was having sex with some girl, her face turned away, her voice audible. It wasn't old either. The room had the same curtains I'd seen in a picture he'd sent me last week. Same tattoo on his shoulder, same necklace. Over the video, he'd written, Can I do this to you when I see you? Smiling face with horns. For a second my brain just buffered. My first reaction was confusion, like maybe he'd sent it by mistake. Then my stomach turned. My whole body went hot, then cold. I exited the snap. My hands were actually shaking. I stared at my screen, expecting a follow-up message like, OMG wrong person, I'm so sorry. Nothing. I didn't reply. I didn't ask questions. I went straight to settings. Block on Snapchat. Block his number. Block on Hinge. Instagram. Everywhere. I put my phone face down and lay there with my heart racing like I'd just run from something. It felt like he'd dropped his used condom in my lap and said, So, what do you think? For 2 days, silence. No calls, obviously. I started to relax. Maybe he got the message. Then the text now numbers started. First one, Hey, it's me. Why did you block me? I'm so sorry, I didn't think you'd take it that way. I blocked it. Next day, different number. You're overreacting. It wasn't that deep. It wasn't even recent. Block. Another number. At least let me explain. I really like you. Block. 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 It turned into a game of whack-a-mole. Unknown numbers calling while I was in lecture. Messages bouncing between apology and anger. 1 minute he was, Please, I'm begging you, you're special. The next he was, you think you're better than everyone because you're light-skinned and in uni. He found my Facebook. I'd forgotten it even existed. Hi, my full government name. He wrote in my message requests. We need to talk about what happened. Block. TikTok next. A comment under a random hair video. You know it wasn't that serious, right? I had to scroll up to see the username. Some nonsense handle, no profile pic, 1 follower. I checked my DMs. Hidden requests, full of messages from him. I miss you. You're really going to ghost me like this? Pick up your phone or I'll come to your hostel. That one had me sitting up straight. I was in my sprinkle era, but with better shoes. Thursday nights in the city are a sport. Every bar between Bank and Liverpool Street is full of men in navy suits pretending to be wolves and women in better tailoring pretending not to see them. I treated it like fieldwork. 1 martini, a corner seat, and a mental note of which watch brands came attached to which bad habits. That night I chose a glass box of a bar near Moorgate, the kind with floor-to-ceiling windows and cocktails that cost more than my weekly oyster top-up. I sat at the bar, back straight, scrolling aimlessly, catching my reflection in the mirror behind the bottles. Red lip sharp, hair sleek, dress doing exactly what I paid it to do. The bartender clocked me and smiled. We'd done this dance before. Usual, he asked. Please, I said. Extra cold. And no finance bros who call me darling tonight. He laughed, shook the martini. 2 minutes later, a second glass slid into my peripheral vision, clear and perfect, with an olive like a little green planet. From the gentleman at the end, the bartender said, subtle chin tilt. I followed the direction. Mid-40s maybe, silver at the temples, dark shirt open at the collar. Not city boy navy, this was more old money casual. No wedding ring on his left hand that I could see from here. I raised my glass. He did the same, then walked over as if this were all inevitable. Mind if I? He gestured to the empty seat beside me. If you're more interesting than the emails I'm ignoring, be my guest, I said. He laughed like I was the first woman to ever be clever in that bar. I'm Mark, he said. His accent was educated but soft, London, sanded down by too many business trips. We started with the usual script. What do you do, where do you live, isn't the Northern Line hell? He worked in commodities in that vague way that meant I make money from things that ruin the planet. I said I worked in creative, which is my vague way of saying I get underpaid to make rich people's brands look nice. It was easy conversation. Too easy, maybe. He had that slightly weary, charming thing middle-aged men do when they want to seem safe. He asked about my work like he cared, remembered small details I dropped, refilled my glass when it got low. When he laughed, it reached his eyes. When he listened, he was very, very still. I didn't see the ring until I reached past him for a napkin. Left hand. Simple platinum band. No fuss. No tan line suggesting it was new. I pulled my hand back and smiled. So, I said lightly, how does your wife feel about you sending strange women martinis? He didn't flinch. That should have been my first red flag. He looked down at his hand, exhaled through his nose in this rehearsed little sigh, and turned the ring with his thumb. Separated, he said. Well, basically divorced. It's complicated. Of course it was. I raised an eyebrow. Isn't it always? The words poured out like he'd practiced them in the mirror. They'd been married 12 years, he said. 2 kids, girl and boy. No, boy and girl. 10 and 7. No, 11 and 7, birthdays close together. A nasty divorce, custody battle, horrible ex who'd weaponized the children. He used that exact phrase, weaponized. His lawyer was good but expensive. Her lawyer was a shark. He loved his children more than anything. He was staying for them longer than he should have. He'd moved out 6 months ago. 4. Time blurred when he talked about it. The bartender came over to wipe a perfectly clean section of bar, eyes flicking between us. Another for you, Mark? He asked. Or the usual? The usual, Mark said without thinking, then glanced at me. I come here too much, he added like it was a joke. The usual. Interesting. I'm not naive. I know men lie. I also know divorce can be ugly in ways you don't post on Instagram. As he painted himself as the long-suffering father, part of me rolled my eyes, another part softened. I pictured these invisible children, this terrible ex-wife who, in his telling, had gone from love of his life to a rational villain. I could never be the other woman, I said at one point, maybe to myself as much as to him. I don't have the stomach for that kind of drama. That's when I saw it. Just for a second, something in him lit up. Not in his smile, it stayed carefully sad, but in his eyes. Like I'd said the code word. No, no, he rushed to reassure me. I would never put you in that position. It's over. We're done, we just haven't signed all the papers yet. You're not that girl. I wouldn't do that to you. He said that girl, with a strange sort of reverence, like she was both sacred and disposable. We talked for hours. Or rather, he talked and I occasionally pushed. When did they separate again? Where do the kids go to school? Who decided on the custody schedule? Little things. Once he said the kids stayed with him every weekend. Later it was every other week. First, the boy was obsessed with football. Then it was, oh no, she's the sporty one. His ex-wife worked in marketing, then HR, then something corporate. The bartender's face did this small twist every time he walked past. I've learned that bartenders know the truest version of any man who sits alone at their bar. At one point, as he set down our drinks, he caught my eye and held it for a fraction too long, like he was trying to say something without words. We left around midnight. Mark offered to call me a cab. I told him I'd get an Uber. He put his hand gently on my back as we walked to the door, light enough to be gentlemanly, firm enough to remind me it was there. Can I see you again? He asked, under the cold blue of the office building lights. I'll think about it, I said, which in my language means probably not, but I'm polite. At home, in my tiny flat that still smelled faintly of my flatmate's curry, I kicked off my shoes and sat on the edge of my bed, makeup still perfect, mind buzzing. Something about him itched in my brain, like a label half peeled off a bottle. On impulse, I opened my laptop. You can find out a lot about a person if you know their full name, approximate age, and the companies they like to name drop. His LinkedIn was easy, Mark H., Commodities Director, London. His Facebook was locked down to friends only, but not the profile picture. Him with a glass of wine on a beach somewhere alone. Instagram was business Y, sunsets from hotel rooms, plates of food, city skylines. No kids. No ex-wife. No tagged photos with anyone who could be either. Background check sites are ugly but efficient. Electoral roll. Property records. County court judgments. Marriages and divorces, if you're patient. I typed in his name, adjusted the filters, and waited. One marriage would have been enough. Even a messy divorce filing. Anything. Nothing. Not a single record of him ever being married in the UK. No associated spouse's name. No family home jointly owned. Definitely no bitter custody case clogging up the court listings. Just one flat in Canary Wharf, purchased 5 years ago. Just him. I sat back, staring at the screen. It's funny how quickly your perception can flip. The tragic, wounded father shrank, turned inside out, and something else was left standing there, something colder. I did not think it would be in a basement sushi bar in Tokyo, listening to a drunk American yell slurs at a man holding a very sharp knife. So, the omakase date from hell. I'd been in Tokyo for 6 months, doing the cliché French expat in creative job thing. My Japanese was survival level, my loneliness was Olympic level. One night, after too much wine and too many, you need to put yourself out there messages from my friends back home, I re-downloaded Raya. Enter, Adam. Tall, tan finance guy. He'd lived in Japan a few years, loved food, knew a little secret omakase place that was life-changing. Still, I agreed to meet him. The plan was one drink first at a bar in Shibuya, then the omakase. It's small, really intimate, he texted. You're going to love it. The bar was cool, dim, lots of concrete and plants, some DJ playing something that sounded like lo-fi anxiety. I arrived 5 minutes early, ordered a ginger ale, and rehearsed how to say. He walked in right on time. He looked like his photos, which honestly shocked me. He kissed my cheek like we'd met before. Wow, you're even prettier in person, he said. Original. Drink, he asked, already waving at the bartender. I told him I wasn't really drinking that night. He gave this exaggerated, wow, okay face. Just one. Come on. I have work tomorrow, I lied. And honestly, I'm tired. I'll stick to this. He shrugged, then ordered a double whiskey for himself. Finished it in maybe 10 minutes. Then another. I watched the speed and thought, interesting. I know big guys process alcohol differently, but even in France we call this a lot. He talked. A lot. About his job in consulting, about Tokyo being so safe but also so weird, about his apartment view. When I steered the conversation to Japan, language, cultural stuff, he said, "Oh, I don't really do the culture thing. I just like the restaurants." Red flag number 2, waving politely. By the time we left the bar, he'd had 3 doubles. 4? I'd lost count. We walked the 5 minutes to the omakase place, and in those 5 minutes he went from slightly loud to London pub at 1 a.m. volume. The restaurant was in a basement, down a narrow set of stairs. No sign outside, just a tiny lantern. Inside, it was beautiful in that minimalist way. 10 seats at a wooden counter, chef in the middle, soft jazz, low conversation. It smelled like rice vinegar and something clean. We were the last to arrive. The chef bowed. The staff bowed. I bowed back. Adam sort of nodded, like he was acknowledging fans. They sat us at the corner of the counter, right next to the chef's cutting board. Perfect view of the knife. Perfect view of my poor life choices. As soon as we sat, Adam leaned over to me and said way too loudly, "Is this it?" I thought it would be. I don't know bigger. The couple next to us, 2 Japanese men in suits, went very still. The chef kept his polite smile, but I saw something flicker in his eyes. The omakase began. 1 piece at a time, the chef placed perfect little jewels of fish in front of us, explaining each one in gentle Japanese. I answered in my clumsy, textbook perfect sentences. Adam stared like he was waiting for subtitles. After the second piece, he flagged down the staff. "Hey, do you guys have like soy sauce? Or sriracha? This needs something." I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me. The waitress smiled that tight customer service smile and said, "The chef recommends as is." He rolled his eyes. Then came the first slur. The chef misheard something Adam said, leaned in, and Adam repeated himself, slower. In that way foreigners do that is more insulting than helpful. When the chef still looked confused, Adam laughed and said a word I'm not repeating, something he'd probably heard in a World War II movie. The room froze. No sound except the soft whir of the fridge and the jazz. The chef's hands stilled over the fish. One of the men in suits shifted, as if to turn, then didn't. A woman further down the counter stared fixedly at her plate. "Adam," I hissed. "Stop. That's not funny." He leaned back in his chair, grinning. "Relax. They don't understand me." "They understand enough," I said through my teeth. Every time the chef set something down, Adam made a comment. "Too small. Too weird. Too raw." He called out across the room to the other diners. "Hey, what do you guys think? You like this?" As if we were all at a sports bar tasting wings, not a quiet, expensive omakase. He kept getting up from his seat to gesture, to point, to laugh. I had to physically push his shoulder down more than once. "Sit. Down," I whispered. At one point, he stood half out of his chair to joke about the fish head on the counter, miming it talking in a Japanese accent. The chef smiled more tightly, knife flashing as he cut. I couldn't stop looking at that knife. How easily it went through flesh. How quickly it could slip. My chest felt tight. The room got smaller with every course. Each piece of sushi stretched time. 10 seconds to eat, 10 minutes of humiliation attached. Twice, I excused myself to the bathroom. The hallway was narrow, the door at the end slightly ajar. I checked for a back exit, like I was in some thriller. It was just a tiny staff closet. No escape. To leave, I'd have to walk past everyone, say something, step out alone into the street with him trailing behind. I splashed water on my face, looked at myself in the mirror. Perfect eyeliner, perfect lipstick, haunted eyes. "Go back out. Smile. Sit down. Endure." He ordered sake. Of course he did. When they poured it, he toasted the room, loudly, as if he were giving a speech. "To Tokyo," he shouted. No one responded. I downed my tiny cup in one shot, just to have something warm in my chest that wasn't panic. Between courses, he leaned into me, hand gripping my arm a little too hard. "You're being really quiet," he murmured, breath hot with alcohol. "You're not one of those girls who can't take a joke, right?" I gently peeled his fingers off. "I'm one of those girls who doesn't want to get us both kicked out," I said. He laughed like I'd complimented him. 2 hours. 17 courses. 17 opportunities for him to embarrass himself. 17 chances for me to start screaming. When the final piece was placed, a delicate little uni, something I couldn't even taste over the metallic tang of adrenaline, I felt like I'd survived a natural disaster. My shoulders were up around my ears. My jaw ached from clenching. Upstairs, he nearly fell on the steps. He turned, swaying slightly, and threw his card at the hostess with a flourish. "Put it all on that," he said, like he was doing them a favor. Outside, the night air was cold and wet. My Uber was already on its way. I'd called it on my second bathroom escape. The little icon crawled towards us on the map like salvation. "Can we talk for a minute?" he said, catching my wrist. I pulled my arm back. About what? He looked offended. About us? About how it went. I had a really good time with you. That almost broke me. The complete disconnect between our realities. I didn't, I said very calmly. I had a horrible time. You were loud, racist, rude, and you made everyone in that room uncomfortable, including me. I will never see you again. He started to protest. Whoa, that's harsh. Come on, it wasn't that bad, they were laughing. My Uber pulled up. I opened the door, got in, and shut it while he was mid-sentence. The driver glanced at him, then at me in the mirror. I just said, please go. He was already 5 minutes late when he texted, here, smiley face, and I should have taken that as a sign. I grabbed my bag, did one last check in the hallway mirror, liner sharp, lip gloss still glossy, hair big enough to prove I'm a bartender and a makeup artist, and walked outside into the cold Midwestern evening. He was leaning against his car, scrolling his phone, that lazy half-smile like I'd interrupted something more important than picking me up. Hey, he said, giving me a quick hug that lasted just a little too long for a first date. You look wow. Like, you really tried. I laughed it off. Thanks, I guess. We drove to the nicest bar in town, a brick place with fairy lights in the windows that tries really hard to pretend we don't live in the middle of nowhere. On the drive, he talked fast, work, gym, his crazy exes who didn't get him. He never asked a single question about me. Inside, we slid onto this plush gray couch near the back. I ordered a glass of wine, a safe red I drink after every shift. He glanced at me, then back at the server. Can I get a shot of tequila and the same wine she's having? He asked. You cool if I do a shot? Yeah, sure, I said. Go for it. Our server left, and he bounced his knee like a kid waiting for recess. Then he squinted across the room. Bathroom's over there, right? I'll be right back. He stood up before I could answer. I watched him cross the room. He disappeared through the bathroom door, just as my co-worker from one of my jobs spotted me. Yo, he said, sliding over with a grin. What are you doing here? First date, I said, rolling my eyes. Oh, want me to heckle him? Tell him you have 3 secret husbands and a pet raccoon. I laughed. Yeah, sure, ruin my life. We joked for a bit, then he went back to his friends. Our drinks arrived. Mine sat pretty. His shot waited like a dare. He came back a couple minutes later, sniffed, wiped his nose, and downed the shot in one go. Man, I needed that, he said. Work's been insane. His breath had this weird edge to it, not just alcohol. Something sharp. Chemical. I ignored it. We started talking. I did my usual thing, asking questions, laughing, telling little stories about working at the bar and doing wedding makeup on the weekends. He loved talking about himself. Childhood trauma. His ambitious plans. His ex who couldn't handle his lifestyle. It was a lot for someone who couldn't even pronounce my last name yet. We both went to the bathroom at the same time at one point. On the way there, I said something over my shoulder, and he didn't hear me. Instead of just asking me to repeat it, he reached out and grabbed the back of my neck, hard, and yanked me backward like I was a shopping cart. I froze. He was easily a foot taller than me, his hand hot and heavy on my skin. Sorry, he laughed, letting go. Didn't hear you. I forced a smile. It's okay, I said, even though it wasn't. My neck tingled all the way into the bathroom. When I got back, I beat him to the table again. His wine was mostly gone. His shot glass was empty and upside down like a period at the end of a sentence. My wine was half full. I stared at the door, doing math I didn't want to do. 2 drinks already, and he drove me here. He slid in beside me again, a little too close, knees touching. You good? He asked. His pupils looked wrong. Too bright, too focused for how much he'd had. I think you should have some water, I said, picking at my napkin. You're drinking kind of a lot, and you're driving. He put his hand over his heart. Oh my God, I would never make you feel unsafe. Like, if you don't feel okay with me driving, we'll get you an Uber. No problem. I got you. He said it with this intense sincerity that almost made me believe him. Almost. Then he waved the server over. Another round? Same thing, he said. My stomach dropped. That made 6 drinks for him if he finished them. I stuck to another glass of wine. The drinks came. He took a sip, then pulled out his phone. Hold up, he said, already dialing. I gotta call my buddy. He'll think this is hilarious. During the date? I asked, joking but not really. He laughed. You're cool. You're chill. It's fine. His friend didn't answer. He called another one. No answer. He sighed dramatically and stuffed his phone away. We drifted into heavier topics, family, mental health, that kind of soul-bearing stuff that feels intimate until you realize they're just trauma dumping on a stranger. His eyes unfocused occasionally, then snapped back with this manic brightness. Then, casually like he was commenting on the weather, he said, "I want to be honest with you. My friends have gotten into coke." I blinked. "Okay. Like, I'm not an addict," he rushed to add. "But they got me into it, you know? And I kinda went crazy this week. Spent like $500 on it." I stared at him, my fingers tightening around my glass. $500. This week? He nodded, almost proud. "Yeah, but like, I'm fine. I got self-control. I don't need it or anything." It hit me then. The bathrooms. The weird chemical smell. The way he kept rubbing his nose. "Have you been doing it here?" I asked slowly. He hesitated for half a second. "I mean, yeah. I'm just being honest. I told you I'm honest." So now the equation changed. Not just drunk and driving, but drunk and coked up and driving. With me in the passenger seat. The room felt smaller. The music too loud. His knee bounced faster, wine glass in one hand, words spilling out like he was trying to build a case for himself. "I swear I'm not like a junkie or anything," he kept saying. "It's just like my thing right now. I'm handling it. You don't even know me yet." I smiled tightly and texted under the table. First my coworker, 911. At the bar. Please. Then a friend. Then another. I didn't want the Uber heat order. I wanted someone who wasn't high and drunk to physically show up between me and him. He ordered a fourth round. "I just told you I'm uncomfortable," I said quietly. "And I told you I got you," he said, almost offended. "I'm having a good time. Aren't you having a good time?" He started talking about his ex again, scrolling through his phone, pointing out a contact with a heart next to her name. "That's my ex," he said. "I'm just too lazy to change it. We're not sleeping together or anything. You can trust me." I hadn't asked. I hadn't even looked at his phone. "I'm gonna run to the bathroom," I said instead. "Be right back." In the stall, I leaned my head against the cool metal and breathed. My phone buzzed, "My friend, on my way." 10 minutes. Another text. My coworker had told the staff what was up. The server had noticed too. When I came out, the server caught my arm. "Hey," she murmured. "I get off soon. If your ride falls through, I can wait and drive you. Don't worry." I could have hugged her. "Thank you," I whispered. Back at the table, he was mid-rant, scrolling, calling, trying to drag me back into whatever storyline he'd built in his head about us. "I just feel like you're judging me," he said. "Like, you don't even know me. You're letting your ex mess this up. I could quit on Monday and prove it to you. I see a future with you." It was a first date. "My friend's here," I said, standing and grabbing my bag. His hand snapped around mine. "No. Please. Please don't go. Just one more hour. We can work this out. You're amazing. I don't want to lose this." "There's nothing to work out," I said, my voice surprisingly calm. "I already know everything I need to know." When I moved from Miami to the DMV, everybody told me the same thing. Dating here is different. They never explained how different. They just made that face. The girl, you'll see face. So there I was, 3 months into my new job as a night shift nurse, sitting dead center at a horseshoe-shaped bar in DC on a first date with a man I met on an app. We'll call him Ryan. The bar was one of those spots that's trying to be classy and hood at the same time. Exposed brick, neon signs, sticky floors. Little TVs in the corners playing a game nobody was really watching. Humid air following you inside like a stray dog. You could hear sirens outside under the bass thumping from the speakers. We were smack in the middle of the horseshoe, the place where if anything went down, everybody had front row seats. "Yo, I'm glad you came out," Ryan said, brushing imaginary lint off his shirt. "Most girls be flaking." I smiled, sipping my drink. "Well, I actually show up when I say I will." Revolutionary concept, I know. He laughed too hard at that, big goofy laugh, tapping the bar like I'd just done stand-up. He was cute in that, I wear too much cologne and still live like it's college kind of way. Tall, chain peeking out, fitted cap perfectly angled. He kept saying, "You feel me?" after every sentence. 5 minutes in, I was already mentally drafting the "he's nice," but no text I'd send my group chat later. That's when I saw her. Out of the corner of my eye, through the front windows, this woman was standing on the sidewalk. Big girl. Thick. Brown skin my shade, maybe a little darker. Short bob like she cut it herself in the bathroom mirror, edges fighting for their lives. Cookie Monster pajama pants. Yes, pajamas. In public. At night. In DC. 2 big rolling suitcases by her side, like she was catching a flight from this relationship. She had that I wish __ would stance, feet planted, chin up, eyes locked on the bar. I sucked my teeth softly. In Miami, women like that meant drama. In DC, I was still learning, but my spirit said, pay attention. I glanced at Ryan. He was looking down at his phone, scrolling, completely unbothered. When I looked back at the window, she was gone. Vanished. I barely had time to process that before I felt a presence. You know when someone walks up behind you, and the air changes? That. She came around the end of the horseshoe and walked straight toward us, suitcases rolling loudly over the sticky floor. The whole bar started to quiet down like someone turned the volume knob just a bit. Ryan. Her voice cut through the music. Not loud but heavy. Rhythmic. Like each syllable been reheated in her chest all day. He stiffened beside me. I watched his shoulders rise, then drop. Slowly he turned. Yo, what you doing here? She squinted, lips curling into a humorless smile. The half grill on her bottom teeth caught the neon glinting. You. Don't. See. Me? She asked, each word its own little drumbeat. The bar went silent. Even the bartender froze mid-pour. You could feel all the eyes, all the phones sliding out of pockets and bags, tilted just so. People sipping slower, pretending not to stare while staring. I sat perfectly still, one hand on my drink, the other slowly closing around my purse strap. My nurse brain kicked in, exits to the left and right, bouncer near the door, distance to the bathroom if I needed to hide. Maybe this was a cousin. Maybe a friend. Maybe she got the wrong guy. That's what I told myself in that half second of denial. She looked at me then. Up and down. Not mean just measuring. "Aye ma," she said, voice softening a fraction. "I ain't got no beef with you. You good?" I gave a tiny, "Okay, because what else do you say to that?" She jabbed a thumb in Ryan's direction. "But this? This my husband. Husband." My brain echoed it like a broken PA system at the hospital. "Husband, husband, husband." Ryan stammered. "Man, chill, it's not even like." She popped open the first suitcase. Underwear. His. Flying. Boxers and socks launched into the air like she was doing a confetti reveal. They landed on the bar, in somebody's drink, across a plate of wings. People gasped, then laughed, then tried to pretend they weren't loving every second. "This man left the crib," she said, voice growing louder, steadier, almost sermon-like, talking, about he going to handle some business. She tossed a t-shirt on his lap. "Whole time, business is right here at the bar." She bent down, unzipped the second suitcase with a slow, theatrical flourish. Pulled out a plastic bag full of what I did not need my nursing license involved with. Green. Loud. Obvious. "Hear that, Ryan?" she said, waving it in his face. "Your customer's looking for you. Since you want to be a street pharmacist and a husband and a Tinder boy all at the same damn time." The bartender muttered, "Ah, hell no," under his breath. I stared at the bag, then at Ryan, then at my drink. Married. Dealer. Idiot. I had picked the trifecta. Someone in the back shouted, "Damn," and then tried to pretend he didn't. She dropped the bag on the bar with a thud, then turned, put both hands on the suitcase, and started twerking. Full performance. The bar howled. It would have been funny if my date wasn't the punchline I was sitting next to. I watched Ryan shrink, melting into the stool, eyes darting from her to me to everyone else. "I can explain," he muttered at me. "You really can't," I said calmly. My heart was pounding, but my voice was flat. When you've worked night shifts and seen actual emergencies, you learn how to sound calm even when the room is on fire. Or in this case, when your date's life is being burned to the ground in front of you. Phones were out now, angles fixed, some people pretending to film the ceiling. The horror wasn't just her. It was knowing this would be somebody's group chat video by morning. And I'd be in the background. Miami nurse, new in town, starring as side chick at the bar. I slid off my stool. "Can I close my tab?" I asked the bartender, keeping my voice low. He nodded quickly, rang me out in record time, eyes flicking between the three of us. When he handed me the receipt, he leaned in. "You good?" he whispered. "I'm leaving," I said. "So yeah." I signed, grabbed my purse, and stepped away from the horseshoe battlefield. Ryan half reached for me. "Wait, can you just take that up with your wife?" I said. "And your laundry." I walked out into the humid DC night, sirens wailing faintly in the distance, and texted my friend, "You were right. Dating up here is different." I didn't even look back through the windows. I didn't need to. I could still hear her voice echoing behind me, rhythmic and relentless. "You don't see me? You don't see me? Trust me, I saw enough. New Orleans always sounds like a good idea when you're sitting safe at home in a tiny bayou town. It was a Saturday, I was 22, bored, and all my friends were busy. The Texan had been Snapchatting me for a while, tall, sweet accent, yes ma'am type. He worked some crazy job where he got one Sunday off every now and then. Come out to NOLA, he said. We'll go out with my co-workers. I'll pay for your parking. That last part did it. I did my hair, put on my going out boots, and drove an hour and 20 through that dark stretch of Louisiana where the road is just swamp and sky. We met in one of those pay-to-park lots near the quarter. He was cute, smelled like cologne and beer, and he really did pay for my parking like he promised, tapping his card at the kiosk. See, he said, grinning. Told you I got you. We hit Coyote Ugly first. Loud, sticky, chaotic. Then some other bar where his friend yelled, "You have to ride the cock." And I found myself on top of a mechanical chicken in front of strangers, screaming and laughing like an idiot. It was fun in that drunk tourist, I'll laugh about this later kind of way. We shut one bar down, then another. The night blurred into sweaty dancing and cheap shots, and the kind of bad decisions that feel harmless when there's a crowd. New Orleans glowed around us, neon signs flickering, brass music floating from somewhere down the street, the air thick with beer, cigarettes, and the muddy breath of the Mississippi. Then 4 a.m. hit. We were in this packed club, music still pounding, but his body just powered down. 1 second he's vibing, the next he's slumped over on a bar stool, head drooping, eyes closed. I nudged him. Hey Bob, let's go. I'm tired. He swatted my hand away. Not playful. Hard. Like I was a fly. I tried again louder. Bob, come on, we gotta go. He shoved me off him, mumbling something. The bouncer gave us that look like, control your man or I will. That's when my stomach dropped. I looked around, packed club, drunk men. I'm an hour and 20 from home, and the man who was supposed to walk me back to my car just turned into a hostile sack of meat. I checked maps, 19-minute walk to the lot. 19 minutes through New Orleans at 4 a.m. As a small, skinny girl with a cute top and a stun gun. Absolutely not. I started calling my friends. 1, no answer. 2, no answer. My heart was beating in my throat. Finally, Emma picked up, voice groggy. Hello? Stay on the phone with me, I said, already weaving out of the club. I gotta walk to my car. It's like 20 minutes. If I get snatched, you're calling 911. She woke up real fast after that. So there I was, walking down broken sidewalks, drunk strangers yelling, couples fighting in doorways, sirens somewhere near the quarter. I had my stun gun pressed against my own stomach like a comfort object, ready to flip it out if anyone came too close. We were laughing on the phone because that's what we do when things are bad. We laugh, but my eyes were scanning shadows, checking every reflection, rehearsing lines in my head. Don't touch me. Back up. I'll tase you, I swear to God. When I finally saw my car in the distance, relief lasted exactly 3 seconds, until I saw the bright yellow boot clamped on my wheel. I stopped dead. Emma, they booted my car. She wheezed laughing. You lying, Dot. I wish I was. There was a sticker with a number. I called, voice shaking. The boot guy said he'd come out. I called the Texan, no answer. I called again, straight to voicemail. While I waited, I realized I had another problem. I had to pee so bad I could have cried. I tried to find a bathroom in a nearby hotel. No luck. Security side-eyed me like I was trying to move in. I went back to my car, still on the phone with Emma, doing that sad little desperate dance. Headlights swung into the lot. A truck pulled up. I thought it was the boot man. It wasn't. It was him. He climbed out of the truck, shirt shredded, blood everywhere, on his face, his neck, smeared down his arms. Glass glittered in his hair. Emma, I whispered. Oh my God, he actually got jumped. He staggered over, mad as hell, more embarrassed than hurt. The boot guy arrived right after, calm as a priest, clipboard in hand, like this was just another Tuesday. They started arguing. Boot guy kept repeating, if it's not in the system, it's not in the system. The Texan pulled up his bank app, shoving bloody hands in this man's face, yelling about how he'd already paid. I just stood there, in the middle of the lot, half horrified, half exhausted, thighs clenched because I still had to pee. Eventually the boot came off. He slid into my passenger seat, like we were going back to the hotel together. We'll go back, he said. It's late. Just stay. You don't gotta drive home. No, I said, gripping the wheel. I'm going home. The next 45 minutes were a fight. Him pleading, guilt-tripping, trying to make me feel bad for abandoning him. Me refusing, circling the block, finally pulling down a one-way the wrong way just so I had an excuse to stop. "You gotta get out," I said. "I need to turn around." He did finally, slamming the door, still talking. I drove away shaking, still on the phone with Emma, both of us half laughing, half horrified. I ended up peeing behind a dumpster at a gas station, while a random guy stood guard and promised not to look. By the time I made it home, the sun was coming up, my window still had adhesive from the boot, and my brain kept replaying it all. The bar, the walk, the blood, the bootman's calm voice. People say I'm being dramatic when I say I almost died on that first date, but the feeling of almost sticks harder than you'd think. When he suggested the amusement park, it sounded cute in theory. "It's like 2 hours away," he said, all proud of himself. "We'll go for the whole day. I'll pay for everything." And my broke British grad student brain went, free roller coasters, and completely skipped over the phrase whole day like it was a minor detail. It wasn't until the morning of watching his car pull up that it hit me. I had voluntarily signed up to spend 12 straight hours with a man I'd known for, in total, maybe 13 hours of my life. Third date. No exit strategy. Excellent. The first 2 dates had been fine. He seemed sweet enough, bit awkward, but I'm doing a master's in a different country. Everyone's a bit weird here, including me. We'd had a couple of 6-hour hangouts where the conversation felt easy enough, probably because there was novelty, and I was filling every silence like a performing monkey. 30 minutes into the car ride, I realized I was the entire entertainment schedule. I'd ask a question, he'd answer in 3 words, then stare at the road. We weren't so much having a conversation as I was hosting a podcast, and he was an audience member who occasionally grunted. "So what got you into your major?" I asked. "I dunno. It's just chill." "Brilliant." Shakespeare wept. We eventually arrive. It's 10 a.m., the sun already trying to kill us. The car park is full of sticky children, screaming teenagers, and parents who look like they regret every decision that led them here. The second we get through the gates, he wraps his arms around my waist from behind. Not like a light, romantic little hug. Like a koala. Full body weight. "Come here, baby," he says into my ear. I physically flinch. We've known each other 3 dates, and suddenly I am baby, in front of hundreds of people, including toddlers with candy floss who now think we're one of those couples. I try to step away to look at the giant map of the park. He follows, still attached, so I'm basically dragging him along like a wet backpack. "Can you give me a bit of space?" I say lightly. He laughs, like I've said something adorable. "You're shy," he says, and tightens his grip. We join the queue for the biggest roller coaster. The sign says estimated wait time, 90 minutes. The sun is fully on us. No shade. Children are shrieking. The metal clatter of rides rises and falls like some industrial hellscape. There is a permanent smell of fried dough and sugar in the air that, after 10 minutes, makes me feel slightly ill. He is still pressed against me, hands on my waist, occasionally kissing my cheek, my neck, the back of my head. It's like being slowly marinated in boy sweat. Every 2 minutes. "Come here, baby." He pulls my face round for a kiss. Full, sloppy, open-mouthed kiss while 12-year-olds in front of us stare like they've just discovered why sex ed exists. I keep trying to go for a small, quick kiss, but he treats every one like it's a rehearsal for a badly directed music video. At one point I pull away and notice actual drool stringing between us. I want to die. We finally get near the front. I notice his heart beating ridiculously fast where his chest is pressed against my back. "You all right?" I ask. "You're sort of vibrating." "Yeah, I just don't really like heights," he says. "I'm kind of terrified of roller coasters." I just stare at him. "You booked a roller coaster day as our date, and you don't like roller coasters?" "I wanted to do something you like," he says. "I thought I could get over my fear for you." Which, in a different context, might be sweet. In this context, I'm sunburnt, sweating, dehydrated, and wondering if this is how I die, emotionally of secondhand embarrassment. We get to the very front. The attendant opens the gate. I step forward. He freezes. "Actually, I can't," he blurts. "I'm gonna get off." "You go. I'll wait." So I ride it by myself. Honestly, glorious. 30 seconds of wind and speed, and no one trying to lick my tonsils. When I get off, he's profusely apologizing. I swear, next one I'll go. For sure. 100%. He does not. We join another 90-minute queue. The process repeats. Cling, kiss, sweat, drool, children judging us, my soul leaving my body. At the front, he panics, bails, and I'm once again the single rider line in a relationship data set of 2. By early afternoon, I am starving. I haven't eaten since breakfast. We stand in a 45-minute food line, because of course we do. I ask if he wants anything. Nah, I'm not really hungry, he says. Maybe I'll steal a fry. I order a proper meal because I am, in fact, a mortal who requires calories. We sit down. I nip to the bathroom. When I come back, 3/4 of my food is gone. He's chewing, looking faintly guilty. Thought you weren't hungry? I say. He shrugs. Guess I was hungrier than I thought. He doesn't offer to buy more food. The queue behind us now snakes halfway down the park. I eat the remaining 4 fries like their communion. By early evening, I'm shaky. Like actually about to faint. We're in yet another queue because apparently he is determined to suffer all day for the sake of getting our money's worth. I start swaying. Vision spotty. I tell him I feel faint. He suggests we just stick it out and get food later. That's when I finally snap and drag us to the nearest stand, inhale an entire tray of fries, and hiss, "Touch my food and I will scream." As the day goes on, the overstimulation becomes a lot. Every time I say I want to leave, he says, "We can't, babe. They don't close till 10. We paid good money." He has not gone on a single ride. He has, however, latched onto me like an emotional barnacle for 10 straight hours. By the time we leave, it's dark. I am dead-eyed. He is very pleased with himself. On the highway, he starts nodding off. Not just a little. Full head droop, car swerving, hitting the rumble strip. I can drive, I say. Seriously. I grew up driving on tiny British roads. I'll be fine. He snaps awake, offended. You're not driving my car. I'm fine. Stop overreacting. You are literally falling asleep, I say, gripping the door handle so hard my knuckles ache. He hits the rumble strip again. I got it, he barks. God, you're so dramatic. I spend the rest of the drive in silent, icy terror, watching headlights blur past, doing the maths on how fast we'd die if he drifted just a bit too far. He refuses every offer I make to pull over, swap, or even nap at a service station. We make it back. Barely. He drops me off with a hug that leaves me coated in one final layer of sweat. The next morning, I send a polite, carefully worded text. Something like, "You're lovely, but I don't think we're very compatible romantically. Wishing you the best." He replies with a paragraph accusing me of using him for his money. Apparently, enduring a day of public drool, hunger, heat stroke, and potential freeway death in exchange for a park ticket makes me a gold digger. He then, just for fun, messages me on Instagram a week later asking when I'm free to hang out again. I leave him on read. I should have unmatched him the second he said stargazing, like it was a personality trait. But I was bored, stuck in a tiny university town an hour from Toronto, and his Tinder profile had nice enough photos. Curls, a beaded bracelet, a caption about good vibes only. He looked like the kind of guy who says the moon is so pretty tonight, and actually means it. He picks me up outside my residence in a beat-up hatchback that smells like incense and old fries. He's 21, legally allowed to buy alcohol. I'm not. He reminds me of this twice on the drive. "So you're my little baby criminal tonight," he jokes, grinning. "Drinking with an older man." "Wow," I say deadpan. I feel very safe and respected already. He laughs a little too hard, like he thinks we're flirting. We stop at a gas station. Under yellow buzzing lights, he grabs some pre-mixed coolers and a bottle of cheap something. He looks over his shoulder at me in the car, holds up the bag like he's Santa. I smile and give a thumbs up, mentally rehearsing. 1 drink, maybe 2. Do not get drunk with a stranger in a town where you don't even know the side streets yet. Then he starts driving away from the town lights. No more street lamps, just the occasional farmhouse and the black outline of trees. I make a joke about him murdering me. "Haha, don't say that," he says. "You'll jinx it." "Right," I say. "Wouldn't want to manifest my own murder. That'd be tacky." He tells me he knows this sick spot. It turns out to be a historic battlefield. There's a sign with a cannon on it, and some plaques, and beyond that, rows of pale markers stretching into the dark. Creepy, I say. Love that your first date idea involves unmarked graves. He spreads a blanket right in the middle of it all, like this is totally normal. I sit down, careful not to think about what's underneath us. The ground is cold and damp, seeping through the fabric. The wind threads through the trees in this low hiss, like someone whispering, like the land is still annoyed about whatever happened here. He cracks open a cooler and hands it to me. I take tiny sips, more for something to do with my hands than anything. He drinks faster, talking about how he's really into nature and energy and just being chill, you know. The more he says chill, the less chill he seems. His jaw tenses between sentences. Every time I don't laugh enough, he glances at me like I've flunked a test. The stars are gorgeous, I'll give him that. Clear sky, big moon, constellations I pretend to recognize from some long-forgotten science class. We lay back. The names on the nearest markers are half visible from where my head rests. John Thomas, someone with a last name I can't quite read. I try not to think about the fact that my spine is lined up with theirs. He rolls onto his side to look at me. I know what's coming. Can I kiss you? He asks. Points for asking, I guess. Sure, I say because it feels easier than saying no, and we're already here, and I'm trying to be that breezy girl who doesn't overthink everything. His face comes closer. I aim for soft and simple, a closed-mouth first-date kiss. He, on the other hand, goes full zombie apocalypse. His mouth opens all the way. His tongue shoves at my lips like it's trying to pick a lock. I clamp my mouth shut. He pushes harder, tongue flicking against my teeth. I laugh and pull back a little. Whoa, easy, tiger. Maybe we start with like one tongue-free kiss. He laughs too, but there's this tightness in it. You're cute, he says, and leans in again. Same move. Full assault. I keep my lips closed, turn my head away a bit. He follows, adjusting like I'm a moving target. I put a hand on his chest, a gentle pressure. Not now, not like this. He ignores it. It keeps happening in these weird cycles. He kisses, I resist with my actual face, he pushes past. My shoulders curl away. My fingers dig into the blanket, into the cold ground, into the history of dead men below us. Some part of my brain is floating above the scene, cataloging it. Body language saying no, male ego translating it as try harder. He finally pulls back, breathing a little heavier, like this was effort. Can I give you head? He asks casual, like offering me gum. Like, I just really like doing that. The way he says it, it's a favor, a gift I'd be rude to refuse. No, I say immediately. That's gonna be a no for tonight. His expression drops, the vibes curdling. Oh, okay. I mean, like, why not? You'd probably really like it. Yeah, I'm good, I say. My mom wants me home soon anyway. That's a lie. My mom is 3 hours away in Toronto, probably asleep. Still, as soon as I say it, I feel a little safer, like I just conjured an imaginary chaperone. He goes quiet. The laid-back hippie act slips. His jaw tightens again, his fingers picking at the blanket. We pack up in awkward silence, folding a blanket that's absorbed too much of this night. The drive back is fast. Too fast. The dark road blurs past. He doesn't say much, just tight little answers, sighs that feel louder than words. When we pull up to my residence, I unbuckle my seatbelt before the car even fully stops. Thanks for the stars, I say, hand already on the door. Yeah, he says. Guess your mom really wanted you home. I smile without showing teeth. Yeah, she really did. The second I'm inside and hear the car pull away, my whole body shakes, like my muscles were holding their breath and finally let go. Upstairs, in the safety of my tiny dorm room with its ugly beige walls and IKEA bedding, I open Tinder, Snapchat, everything he's on. Block. 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 Outside, the town is quiet. The battlefield is still there, the markers lined up under the same sky. I lie awake and think about how easily the story could have ended differently. How many girls went out into the dark with a man who didn't take no as lightly as he did. The ghosts feel closer now. Not the ones under the ground. The ones who didn't get to come home and block the guy afterwards. His name was Gospel. Still, his profile was cute. Nigerian. Worked in creative strategy, whatever that means. Smiled with all his teeth. We matched, bantered, and he offered what sounded like the millennial dream. Wine and paint night. At your place, he asked. 26-year-old me, freshly single after a long-term relationship, living alone in a downtown LA high-rise with floor-to-ceiling windows, thought this was charming and intimate and very Pinterest. Sure, I said. Let's do it. The night arrives. He texts me. I'm here, so I ride the elevator down. It dings in that cheerful way that always makes me feel like the main character. I step into the parking garage, and there he is, leaning against his car like it's a photo shoot. He smiles, gives me a hug, and then goes, "Oh shoot, I forgot my wallet." Just like that. He says it in this sheepish, boyish way like we're in a rom-com, and I'm supposed to giggle and rescue him. Parking downtown is $7 for guests. Do you mind covering me? He asks. I'll Venmo you. I hesitate for half a second. I make decent money freelancing and doing design, and $7 isn't going to ruin me, but something in my stomach twinges. Yeah, I say. It's fine. We pay for parking. He pulls a backpack out from his car. What's that? I ask. I brought you a gift, he says, grinning. In my culture, when you go to someone's house for the first time, you bring something. I swoon a little. My last boyfriend thought flowers were a government conspiracy. We walk a couple blocks to Target to get supplies. The air outside smells like weed and car exhaust, the usual LA blend. Inside, the fluorescent lights make everything feel weirdly sharp and fake. We grab canvases, paint, brushes, a cheap bottle of red wine. At the register, I stand there like an idiot for a second, waiting for him to step up. Then I remember, no wallet. He smiles innocently. I pay. Back at my building, the elevator ride up feels longer. He's holding the Target bags in his backpack. I'm holding the growing ache of knowing I've already spent more on a man named Gospel than I intended to. We step into my apartment. He actually stops and looks around, impressed. Wow, he says. This is crazy. Floor-to-ceiling windows? Look at this view. You're killing it. It is a nice place. Downtown glittering outside, city lights scanning across the floor like soft spotlights. Plants, prints, my carefully curated throw blankets. Everything arranged just so. He drops his backpack on the couch, unzips it, and pulls out a diptyque candle. I know exactly how much that costs. I own one. They're a luxury for people like me who grew up smelling fried fish and mop and glow, and now romanticize sandalwood and oud. For you, he says. Like I said, in my culture, we bring gifts. Oh my God, I say. That's so sweet. I put it on the table like it's a small shrine. Then he reaches into the backpack again. Also, he says casually, I just came back from my boy's bachelor party, so I brought party favors. He pulls out a bag of weed. Not shocking, this is LA. Then another baggie. Not weed. Something else I don't usually see in my living room. My brain does that split screen thing. One side is the Filipino eldest daughter raised on don't you ever bring drugs into this house. The other side is the newly single LA creative trying to be chill. I mean, do your thing, I say, trying to sound unbothered. I don't really do all that, but okay. We pour wine. He rolls the grass. I take a couple hits, mostly out of curiosity and wanting to soften the edges of my anxiety. He does everything, weed, then lines on my coffee table like he's cleaning it with the wrong kind of powder. My apartment starts to feel less like mine and more like a set. We set up to paint at my kitchen table. He decides we should paint each other. He's actually not terrible, which is annoying. He keeps looking up at me, then back down, shaking his head and saying things like, I can't believe your ex fumbled this. You're like wifey material. We've known each other for exactly 2 hours. The candle sits between us, unlit, like a prop in this weird play. At some point, he stands up, pulls off his zip-up hoodie, and I realize he's not wearing a t-shirt underneath, just a white tank top. He takes that off too, and now he's just shirtless in my kitchen in gray joggers. He does have a six-pack. I will concede that. We move to the couch. Fleabag is playing on my TV because he mentioned he'd never seen it, and I took that personally. He continues to enjoy his party favors, measured little rituals of snort, sniff, wipe, while I slowly sober up into an uneasy clarity. We start kissing. It's good enough that I forget, briefly, that I'm hosting a more chaotic version of a Bumble ad. Do you want to go to your room? He asks. There's a part of me that wants to say no, ask him to leave, wash my hands, change my sheets, and sage the entire building. Another part is tired and lonely, and still a little high. That part wins. We go to my bedroom. I'm not going to narrate the play-by-play, but I will say this. He is sweaty in a way that is industrial. Over the top. The party favors are clearly doing their thing. He's dramatic, loud, theatrical. It feels less like sex and more like he's auditioning for a role I did not cast him in. At one point, he pauses, breathless, and looks around. Damn, I'm drenched, he says. I regrettably say, yeah. He reaches over, grabs my $75 Anthropology pillow, white textured, my favorite one, and uses it like a hotel towel. Wipes his entire chest, his back, his arms, neck, face. Every glistening inch. Then he tosses it to the floor. I just stare. That pillow is lying there on the carpet like a crime scene, soaked in sweat, cologne, and bad decisions. When we're done, he gets up, throws on his joggers, and wanders back out into the living room like this is a casual Saturday, and not an emotional home invasion. I go to the bathroom, close the door, and lean my head against the cool tile. When I come back, he's at my fridge. "Yo, you got grapes," he says, already eating them. "Your place is like a hotel." "Make yourself at home," I say, voice flat. "I'm kind of hungry," he adds. "You hungry?" "Not really." "There's this hibachi truck outside," he says. "I saw it when I parked. You want to go?" I glance at the time. It's almost 2 a.m. "You can grab some on your way out," I suggest. "Nah, come with me," he says. "Let's go together." I don't know how to say no. My boundaries apparently left with my pillow. We go downstairs, back into the LA night, my building looming above us, indifferent. The hibachi truck is blasting music, smelling aggressively of garlic and soy sauce. We wait in line. He orders lobster fried rice and steak. The total comes to something like $40. He steps aside, looks at me. No wallet, remember. I pay. Back upstairs, he eats on my couch, watching more Fleabag, making little comments like, "Man, is this what it'd be like to be married to you?" And, "I could really see myself spending my life with you." I'm thinking about the candle, the pillow, his bare feet on my rug, the baggies on my table, my credit card charge from Target and hibachi. He finishes his food, licks the fork, sets it down. "So," he says, "you want to go again?" "No," I say instantly. "I need to sleep." He looks disappointed, like I failed an exam. Finally, he gathers his things. Baggies, hoodie, backpack, shoes, and leaves. I was 18 when I decided I'd rather let the military break me than stay home and let my family finish the job. Homeschooled my whole life in South London, then straight into the RAF exchange program, posted to a US base in the middle of nowhere. Everyone back home said, "You're so normal for a homeschooled kid." But the second you put me in a room full of strangers, it was obvious I'd grown up talking mostly to textbooks and church ladies. Tech school was chaos. Jet lag, new country, new rules, everyone bald and malnourished from basic. I clocked him on day one in the briefing room. Pale, big brown eyes, head shaved, sitting too straight. My first thought was, yeah, he's definitely gay, and I moved on. He was quiet in class, always in the back, the kind of boy you forget until he's suddenly everywhere. We didn't actually speak until one weekend, when we were left unsupervised, and the whole base felt like a school that had lost its teachers. I'd done my makeup properly for the first time in months, out of uniform, feeling like an actual human. I was walking to the dining facility, minding my business, and he pulled up in this battered car. "You're in my class, yeah?" he said, leaning out the window. His accent was weird, American but slippery. Miami with a bit of nowhere. We ended up walking together. One of those easy, silly conversations where you trade basics. He's 21, from Miami but living in San Antonio. I'm 18, from London, pretending I'm way more worldly than I am. We swapped socials. That night we started talking, and didn't really stop. It escalated fast. We were together every spare minute, common rooms, sneaking off base, renting hotel rooms just to lie in a proper bed and watch rubbish on TV like normal people. First time we hooked up was terrible, like truly horrific, but somehow the chemistry we had in conversation made me give him a second chance. Then a third. Then it just became our thing. Work, class, hotel, repeat. He became my best friend and my boyfriend at the same time. He knew everything. The fact my dad lied to my mom about his age. The consent issues with my last relationship. The way I'd left home in a snowstorm on Valentine's Day and didn't speak to my mom for months. I told him things I'd never said out loud before. He looked at me like I was the only real person on that entire base. I thought I knew him too. We started doing couple things. Christmas lights in the sad little town park, calamari at the same restaurant every week, waking up at stupid o'clock to queue for some bakery that sold out by 7 a.m. He'd say things like, "We're going to be fine, you know. I've got like 10 grand saved already." And he said it so casually I believed him. I needed to believe someone had a plan. Orders came through. I was headed to Florida. He was going to the American version of nowhere. We joked about getting married for the benefits. Then one day the joking stopped being a joke. On Valentine's Day, freezing, breath fogging in the air, he walked me to this bridge where we'd stood at Christmas. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around me, then shoved me back a bit. "What are you doing?" I laughed, shivering. He dropped to one knee like a rom-com and asked me to marry him. I said yes. Of course I did. We were already acting married. This was just paperwork and extra money. I texted my best friend a photo of the ring. It was too big, bought from some random shop in a dead mall, but it sparkled enough. For about 2 weeks, I was happy. Then one night, we were in my room watching you, the show about the stalker who thinks he's the good guy. I remember telling him, if anyone ever lies to me about their age like my dad did to my mom, I'm done. Non-negotiable. That's the one thing I can't get over. He just nodded, eyes on the screen. The next night, he turned off the TV mid-episode. I need to tell you something, he said. My stomach dropped. You know when the air in the room changes? It was like that. I'm not 21. I'm 23. I laughed at first. Then he showed me his ID. The maths hurt my head, New Year, dates, all that, but even with my calendar dyslexia I could see it. He was older. Not 21. Not 23, either, as I'd later realize. 24, nearly 25. I lost it. Ran downstairs, crying, shaking, telling anyone who would listen that my fiancé had lied about his age after I specifically told him that was a huge trigger for me. He followed me into the hallway, crying harder than me, talking in circles. I didn't know, I swear. There's stuff I don't remember from my childhood, he sobbed. I think they lied to me. Mom, Dad, I think they told me the wrong age. I don't remember what happened. Call your mom, I said. Now. He put her on speaker. It was the middle of the night. She sounded confused, then irritated. Ian, what are you talking about? No one lied to you. Nothing happened to you. You're the age you are. Stop being ridiculous. The performance crumbled. He hung up, tried new angles. He was scared I'd think he was too old. He thought I liked younger guys. He didn't know how to tell me. Every excuse made him smaller. I broke off the engagement. I told everyone in class exactly why, loud enough that nobody had to ask twice. It should have ended there. It didn't. In class a few weeks later, a new instructor did the usual icebreaker. Name, where you're from. He said, I'm Ian, I'm from San Antonio, and I just snapped. No, you're not, I said loudly. You told me you were from Miami. Turns out he'd told one classmate from Miami that he was from Miami, and then couldn't name a single street there. Another girl from San Antonio said he'd told her he'd always lived there, then couldn't answer basic questions about the city. Cornered, he finally admitted he'd actually been born in New York and raised in Germany, a military kid. He'd lied about his age, his hometown, his whole Miami boy identity. And it kept going. The 10 grand in savings? A screenshot of a trust his mom controlled, shared with his brother, that he couldn't actually access. His car? His mom's. Then came stories about racist gas station attendants who refused him service, hate notes on his door, a break-in where he was held at gunpoint and called slurs, an airman of the quarter competition he supposedly almost won. I wanted to be a good partner. I cheated once, hated myself for it, confessed, and actually broke up with him because clearly neither of us were okay. But somehow, my mistake became another thread in his web. We kept talking. I tried to forgive. We even traveled together. He promised me Europe for my 20th, promised he'd saved, promised we'd split everything. When we got there, he had maybe a few $100s. I paid for almost everything, London, Paris, Milan, his hometown in Germany. While I watched my savings disappear, he kept saying, "We did it, babe. Look at us." It started with my sister yelling from her room, "Is this your voice?" I was half asleep, hadn't even brushed my teeth yet. I shuffled down the hall, thinking maybe she'd found some old voicemail or a TikTok I forgot I made. But when I walked into her room, she was watching a YouTube video. The screen was paused on a blurred-out face. But the voice was mine. My laugh, my rhythm, the way I pause before I say something dumb. I knew it immediately, like hearing a recording of a thought you didn't know you said out loud. The channel name was Dates with Dissonance. Each video was styled like a mini documentary, soft lighting, ambient music, and titles like The Quiet Narcissist or Polite Isn't Always Honest. The one playing was titled Red Flags in Conversation. And there it was, my voice, lifted from a real date I'd been on months earlier. Specifically, one night with Amanda, a woman I'd met on a dating app who had a profile full of black and white photos and quotes from authors I had to Google. She was intense in this compelling way. Sharp. Her eyes felt like they were always scanning for something just beneath the surface. We'd met at a bookstore cafe that smelled like wet pages and chai. Talked for hours about comfort TV, the worst first jobs we'd had, and the music we played when we couldn't sleep. She'd laugh at my jokes, ask questions that felt like she really cared. She'd take pictures of her food, sometimes record herself walking into restaurants. I figured she was just into lifestyle content. Everyone's a creator now, right? I never imagined I'd become the content. In the video, Amanda had layered my voice over her own narration. She was analyzing me, my tone, my word choices, the way I laughed at my own joke. She'd pause the audio and explain, in this calm, clinical voice, how my humor masked insecurity, how the way I leaned back mid-sentence suggested a superiority complex, how my silence after she asked a question meant I was dodging vulnerability. I felt my stomach twist. My sister was staring at me, a little horrified, a little fascinated. "That's you, right?" I nodded slowly. I didn't even know how to feel yet. Shock hadn't settled in. I was still trying to piece it all together. Amanda had recorded our date, maybe more than one, and turned it into a dissection. Not just of what I said, but of who she thought I was. And she'd made it public. I scrolled through the rest of her videos. There were dozens. Each one featured a different man's voice, always blurred, always unnamed. But it was clear they were real. The cadence, the awkward pauses, the little stumbles, it wasn't scripted. She had a system. She never showed faces, never used names, but she made it clear that these were real people she'd dated. And she had turned each of them into a chapter in her own analysis of male behavior. I tried messaging her. Nothing. I emailed. No response. I reported the video, but the platform said it didn't violate any guidelines. No identifying information. No copyright infringement. It was transformative content, they said. Commentary. So I wasn't a person anymore. I was commentary. Over the next week, I couldn't stop thinking about every word I'd ever said to her. Every story. Every moment I thought had been ours. Watching the video, I realized even my silences, those moments I'd thought were just quiet, were turned into proof. A pause. Emotional avoidance. A sigh. Internalized arrogance. It was like being dissected alive. I told a friend about it. He said, "Man, that's messed up. But at least your face wasn't shown." Right. Just my voice. Just everything I said when I thought I was safe. I started getting paranoid. Did she record every date? Every conversation? Was she filming when we walked through that overpriced plant shop? Or when we stayed in and watched that movie about quiet people staring out windows? I searched for more of her content. She had videos going back over a year. Each one about a new guy. Each one breaking him down, turning him into a lesson. Some of the comments were brutal. "This guy's voice is so calm, but you can tell he's emotionally manipulative. I dated someone just like this. I wonder how she stays so composed when they're so clearly toxic." I wanted to scream, "I'm not toxic, I just ordered the wrong drink and pretended I liked it." But it didn't matter. I wasn't me to them. I was a symbol, a voice attached to someone else's story. The worst part? The video was good, polished, edited with care. She added soft background music, subtle graphics, even voice modulation in some parts to emphasize emotion. It wasn't sloppy or angry. It was curated. Beautiful even. I stopped dating after that. Deleted my apps. Stopped posting online. Every time I said something personal, I imagined it being slowed down and analyzed. Every laugh felt rehearsed. Every silence felt suspicious. Eventually, the video stopped getting views. The algorithm moved on. But I didn't. Amanda won. She got her content. Her clicks. Her comments. I was just one of many voices lost in her series. Sometimes I still check the channel. I don't even know why. Maybe to see if she ever makes another video with a voice I recognize. Maybe to remind myself that it wasn't just me. Or maybe just to make sure she never makes a sequel. After that night in the Subaru, I told myself I was done. I even typed out a message the next morning. "Hey, I've been thinking and I'm not sure I'm the right person for whatever this is." I stared at it for 10 minutes. Deleted it. Rewrote it. Deleted it again. Instead, I texted her. "Got home safe. Thanks for the night." She replied instantly. "Glad. I really liked seeing you." And just like that, I was back. We didn't jump back in exactly. More like I was eased into it, like the warm part of a pool you don't realize is too hot until you're chest deep. Jessica and I still went on dates, dimly lit cafes, artsy bookstores, long walks where she'd brush her fingers against mine, but never fully hold my hand. But Daniel was always there in the periphery, sometimes in person, sometimes in text, sometimes in the way Jessica would glance at her phone mid-conversation and smile at something she didn't share. He never interfered. He didn't need to. His presence was baked into everything. One weekend, I stayed over. Jessica fell asleep curled up against my chest, her breath warm against my collarbone. I stayed still for what felt like hours, afraid to move and wake her. When I finally got up to use the bathroom, I found Daniel in the kitchen, barefoot, making coffee. He looked up, completely unfazed. "Cream or sugar?" I blinked. Just black." He poured 2 cups, handed me one, and leaned against the counter like we were roommates. Or colleagues. Or co-parents of this strange, shared arrangement. "She sleeps better with someone next to her," he said. "Always has." I nodded, unsure if that was meant to be reassuring or territorial. Jessica came into the kitchen a few minutes later, sleepy but smiling. She kissed me on the cheek, then kissed Daniel on the mouth. Lightly. Briefly. Like punctuation. No one said anything about it. Over the next few weeks, the rules surfaced, not all at once, but gradually, like I was expected to absorb them through context. I couldn't stay more than 2 nights in a row. If I started seeing anyone else, I had to disclose it. If I wanted to take a trip with Jessica, it had to be cleared through what she called the calendar, which I never saw but was clearly sacred. One night, Jessica and I were watching a movie, something slow in French with subtitles I barely followed, when she got a message and paused at mid-scene. "Sorry, I have to talk to Daniel about finances." I sat there on her couch under a massive knit blanket, holding a half-eaten slice of pizza, wondering how I had ended up on the emotional bench of someone else's marriage. The intimacy between us changed subtly, but unmistakably. When we kissed, it was always soft, slow, curated, like she was making sure it wouldn't linger too long. When we slept together, it wasn't cold, but it felt shared, like she was careful to keep a part of herself tethered elsewhere. She never said she loved me. I never asked her to. Eventually, they invited me to dinner with another couple. That's when I found out I wasn't the only connection in Jessica's life. She had others. Daniel did too. Everyone smiled too much. The wine flowed like confession, but the conversation danced around anything personal. I left that night with a headache and the distinct feeling that I was failing an audition I hadn't been told I was part of. After that, I started pulling away. I took longer to reply, made excuses to skip plans. When I was with her, I smiled less and started looking at the clock more. I think she noticed. She didn't push. Then one day she sent a long text. It read like a breakup, but was framed like a graduation. "I think you're not the right fit for our dynamic. That's okay. I really appreciated the time we shared and hope you find a connection that feels more aligned." I didn't respond. Not because I was angry, but because I didn't know what to say. There was never a word for what we were, so what was there to respond to? The weirdest part is, I don't think she did anything wrong. She was honest, mostly. She didn't lie. It's just that everything was built for her and Daniel's comfort. Everyone else was temporary, a guest in their curated world. Sometimes I still think about her. When I pass that bakery, when someone brings up open relationships on a podcast, when I smell sandalwood or hear certain songs from the 90s, I wonder how many other people got into that Subaru. I wonder if anyone ever stayed. He smelled like vodka and lies. That was my first thought when he sat down across from me at the table. I'd been waiting at Nando's for almost 20 minutes, nervously stirring a watered-down Coke, checking the door every time it opened. I'd imagined Thomas walking in tall, confident, clean-cut. The guy from the photos. The guy who told me he was a civil engineer, working on a bridge project in central London. The guy who sent Spotify playlists and good morning texts. The guy who said I seemed genuine and refreshing. But the man who finally showed up wasn't that guy. He was older. Much older. At least mid to late 40s, maybe more. His face was weathered, eyes bloodshot. His beard was patchy and unkempt. His clothes were wrinkled and stained, and his scent hit me like a punch. Cheap alcohol, stale sweat, and something sour that made my stomach twist. "Hi," he said, slurring slightly. "You must be, yeah." He didn't even say my name. I didn't respond right away. I just stared, trying to do the math. The photos, the age he claimed, the voice from our calls. None of it matched the man in front of me. "Are you Thomas?" I asked, already knowing the answer. He chuckled like it was cute. "Yeah, I mean, sort of." I froze. "Sort of." He shrugged. "My middle name's Thomas. No big deal." That's when I knew I needed to leave. But I didn't. Not yet. I was too stunned, too confused. Too angry at myself for being so thoroughly fooled. "I think there's been a mistake," I said, starting to stand. He waved a hand, gesturing for me to sit down. No, don't go." Just hear me out. I hesitated. Against every instinct, I sat back down. Just for a second. And that's when it got worse. I didn't lie to hurt you, he said. I needed to meet you. I've been watching your profile for weeks. I knew we'd click. My skin crawled. What do you mean watching? He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a creased photo, one of my profile pictures. I saw you at that coffee shop on Chestnut a few times. Figured it was fate. I stood up so fast the chair scraped across the tile. My heart was pounding, nausea rising in my throat. You've been following me? He stood too, stumbling slightly. Don't make it into something it isn't. I just wanted a chance. I backed away. I'm leaving. Don't follow me. He held up his hands. I'm not dangerous. You're overreacting. I didn't answer. I just walked out fast. Outside, the air was cold and sharp. I pulled out my phone with shaking hands and ordered a ride immediately, pacing near the curb. I kept glancing behind me, half expecting him to come stumbling out. He didn't. The ride home felt like forever. Every stoplight made me itch. When I finally got through my door, I locked it, latched it, and shoved a chair under the handle. Then I cried. I cried for being stupid, for trusting a stranger, for not trusting my own instincts. I cried because I had shared intimate pieces of my life with someone who wasn't real. And I cried because I had no idea how far he'd already gone. That night, I reverse image searched Thomas's pictures. Within 5 minutes, I found them. A real engineer. Real name. Real life. In Manchester. Completely unrelated to the man I met. I reported the profile to Tinder. I sent screenshots. I blocked the number he'd used to call and text. Then I opened my Instagram and set it to private. I deleted a few posts that showed my location and removed my workplace from my bio. But I couldn't delete the feeling. The dread. For the next week, I saw his face everywhere. On the bus. In the shop queue. Even in the reflection of my own window. I jumped at every knock on the door. Slept with the lights on. Started carrying my keys between my knuckles on the walk home. Then the messages started. New numbers. Blocked IDs. You looked beautiful tonight. I saw you wearing red today. That's my favorite on you. You shouldn't have run away. I reported everything to the police. They took my statement, asked if I had any hard proof. I gave them the numbers, the screenshots. They said they'd file a report, but couldn't do much unless he showed up again or made a direct threat. That wasn't enough. I told my boss. Took a few days off work. Stayed with a friend across town and slept on her couch. She helped me install a camera at my flat, just in case. And then, just when I was starting to breathe again, he showed up. It was a Tuesday night. I'd gone home for a few hours to grab clothes and feed my cat. I stayed longer than I meant to. As I was locking up, I saw him, standing across the street, just watching. He didn't move, didn't speak, just stood there, hands in his coat pockets, like he was waiting for me to come over. I didn't. I went back inside and called the police. Again. This time, they came quickly. But he was gone by the time they arrived. They took it more seriously this time. They added extra patrols to my street. Advised me to file for a restraining order. I did. And after that, nothing. No more messages. No more sightings. He disappeared. I don't know if it was the police. Or if he just got bored. Or if he moved on to someone else. That's the part that bothers me the most. That someone like him can just vanish and start again with someone new. I still check my locks. Still pause at every unknown number. Still get that cold, stabbing feeling anytime someone looks at me too long on the train. I'm careful now. I protect my digital footprint. I vet every match. I don't share anything remotely personal until I've met them multiple times in public. And even then I stay alert. I've been on enough first dates to know that most of them don't lead anywhere. Some are awkward, some are decent, and a few are even fun. But nothing prepared me for the night. I ended up barricading my door with a dresser, while my Tinder date screamed threats from the hallway. His name was Steve. After a few days of messages, he asked me out to a meal. I said yes. We settled on a cozy Italian place downtown, the kind with red checkered tablecloths and dim lighting. I arrived a few minutes early and waited at the bar with a glass of wine, watching the door. When Steve walked in, I was relieved to see that he looked just like his photos, tall, dark hair, clean-shaven, and dressed in a fitted button-down and jeans. He gave me a quick hug and a big smile. "You're even cuter in person," he said. I smiled back. "You're not too bad yourself." We were seated at a small table near the window. The atmosphere was warm and intimate, filled with the soft clatter of silverware and low jazz music in the background. It started off well. Steve asked about my job and hobbies, and I told him about the chaos of marketing campaigns and my guilty pleasure for true crime podcasts. He laughed, teased me about being one of those, and shared some funny stories about his co-workers and how his team once accidentally broke their app during a live demo. For a while, it felt like a good date, but then things started to shift. Steve began glancing around the restaurant, not just casually but constantly, like he was worried someone might see him. At first, I thought maybe he was just nervous or saw someone he knew. When I asked, he brushed it off with a vague, "Thought I recognized somebody." "Guess not." Then came the questions. Not the fun kind. These were personal. Too personal. "So, where exactly do you live?" he asked, leaning in. I laughed lightly. "Downtown. Near the park." "Which building?" he pressed, sipping his wine. I felt a flicker of discomfort. "Just a few blocks from here." He nodded, but I saw the way he watched me as he asked the next one. "You live alone?" I paused. "I have a roommate." It was a lie. I lived alone. But something about his tone made me feel like I needed to lie. Steve smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The rest of the dinner was a slow descent into discomfort. He made more offhand comments about my appearance, compliments that felt too intense for a first date. "You have the kind of face that's hard to forget," he said. Or, "I bet you get hit on all the time." I tried to steer the conversation back to something lighter, but he'd always circle back to personal details. At one point, he asked what time I usually got off work and whether I went to the gym regularly. I started giving vague, non-committal answers, hoping he'd get the hint. Then dessert came. I didn't want any, but Steve insisted on sharing a tiramisu. I agreed just to keep things smooth. As we ate, he moved his chair closer, his leg brushing against mine. I shifted away. He moved closer again. His hand accidentally grazed my thigh. I forced a laugh, made a joke about needing personal space, but he didn't seem to care. When the check came, I reached for my wallet, but Steve waved me off. "I've got it," he said. "You can get the next one." I smiled politely, already planning my exit. Outside, the air was crisp. I pulled my jacket tighter and turned toward the sidewalk. "I'll walk you to your car," he said. "I actually took a rideshare," I lied. "It's just around the corner." He raised an eyebrow. "I can drive you home." "No, it's okay, really," I said. "I like the walk." He stepped closer. "Let me at least make sure you get there safe." I hesitated. This was the moment I should have said no again. But it was late. I was tired, and part of me didn't want to make a scene. So I gave in. "Fine," I said, "but I'm just a few blocks away." We walked mostly in silence. As we reached my building, I stopped at the front steps. "Thanks for dinner," I said, fishing for my keys. Then he said it. "I'll come up for a bit." It wasn't a question. "No," I replied. "I've got an early morning." He stepped closer. "Just a few minutes." "No," I said, firmer this time. I turned to unlock the door, but before I could, he pushed forward, trying to squeeze past me into the doorway. I shoved the door shut with all my strength, slamming it in his face. I heard a thud, followed by silence. Then pounding. "Let me in," he yelled. "Don't act like you didn't want this." I fumbled with the chain lock, heart racing, hands shaking. He kept yelling, banging on the door. "You're gonna regret this, bitch." I dialed 911 with trembling fingers. But before I could say anything, I heard running footsteps. I peeked through the peephole and saw him sprinting to his car, tires screeching as he peeled out of the lot. The police arrived 20 minutes later. I gave them a shaken statement. They told me without physical harm or proof of threat, there wasn't much they could do, but they took a report and advised me to stay vigilant. I didn't sleep that night. I pushed my dresser in front of the door and sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in reach, watching the window for any movement. The next morning, I called my best friend and told her everything. She came over with coffee and a taser, which she insisted I keep in my purse. With her help, I reported Steve's profile to Tinder. They responded quickly and banned his account. For the next few weeks, I was on edge. I avoided my usual routes home. I asked a coworker to walk me to my car. I even considered moving. But slowly the fear faded. He never showed up again. Eventually I started to feel safe. I went back to my normal routines, though I was more cautious, more aware of the little things. I never let a first date walk me home. I always met in public places. I told a friend where I was going and texted updates. I dated again, but it took time. That night stayed with me. The way he smiled as he asked where I lived. The way he tried to force his way in. The sudden snap from charming to threatening. It reminded me that danger doesn't always look like a mugshot. Sometimes it looks like a guy with a good smile and a great Tinder profile. I never heard from Steve again. We met for dinner. That was it. I didn't even really want to go, but I said yes because I was tired of making excuses. It had been a long, lonely week, and Alex had been charming, over text anyway. He wasn't like the others. His messages were thoughtful, his compliments not too cheesy, and he had a sexy, confident tone that made me feel seen. Like he wanted all of me, not just a filtered version. So I agreed. Dinner at a trendy new place downtown. 7 p.m. table near the back. He arrived 10 minutes late. I was already sipping my wine, trying not to look like I was checking my phone every 2 minutes. When he walked in, I felt it. That flicker. He was hot, tall, sharp jawline, navy blazer over a black shirt, dark eyes that didn't blink enough. He had the kind of presence that made your stomach flutter and your brain short-circuit. "You're even prettier than your photos," he said, leaning in to kiss my cheek. His lips brushed too close to the corner of my mouth. I smiled tightly. "Thanks." He sat across from me, and we started talking. He was smooth. He complimented my voice. My outfit. My hands. He said it like he was seeing me naked already. There was an edge to him. A hunger. I told myself to take it as flattery. He ordered wine for both of us. Red. Expensive. He talked about finance. Fast money. Fast cars. Fast women. "But I'm slowing down," he said. "Looking for something real." I half laughed. "Aren't we all?" He stared at me like I was a meal. "You're different." I'd heard that line before, but something about the way he said it made me uneasy. Still, I kept sipping the wine. It was smooth and strong. I needed the buzz. He asked about my job, my family, my exes. "Anyone who'd be upset if they knew you were out with someone like me?" he asked, grinning. I rolled my eyes. "No jealous boyfriends hiding in the bushes, if that's what you mean." He laughed, but it didn't reach his eyes. Halfway through the main course, I started feeling off. Dizzy. Not drunk, but floaty. My head was heavy and my limbs felt thick, like I was underwater. I excused myself to go to the bathroom. On the way back, I saw him hunched over our table, fiddling with something. When he noticed me coming, he snapped upright and flashed that smile again. "Everything okay?" I asked, heart pounding for no reason I could explain. "Just checking my messages," he said smoothly. I sat down, but the room tilted. I gripped the table, trying to stay upright. "You okay?" he asked gently, almost too gently. "Yeah." Maybe the wine hit harder than I thought. He smiled wider. "Let's get some air." I should have said no. I should have called an Uber. But I nodded. He took my arm and guided me out of the restaurant like I was his date of the year. I stumbled slightly, and he held me tighter. "We'll just walk a bit," he said. "Fresh air will help." But we weren't walking toward the main street. We were walking away, down a side road, then another. My head spun, and my mouth felt dry. I tried to stop. "I think I need to go home." "We're almost there," he said. "Where?" "My place. Just for a minute. You can sit down. I'll call you a car." His grip on my waist was firm. Too firm. I tried to pull away, but my body wasn't cooperating. My limbs were sluggish. My voice was slurred. "No, I don't want to." He cut me off. "You're fine." We reached a house at the end of a dark street. It looked abandoned, paint peeling, windows dusty. He fished out a key and unlocked the door. I tried to scream. Nothing came out. Inside, it smelled stale. The air was thick. He dragged me to the back of the house, into a room with one chair. Just one. In the center. Ropes on the floor. I collapsed into the chair, my legs giving out. He started talking. Fast. Rambling. Angry. "You're all the same," he spat. "You act like you're better. Like you're not using men. But you are. You're just like the rest." He began tying my wrists. I struggled weakly. I couldn't scream. I cried instead. "You're not going to ghost me, bitch. Not you. Not tonight." He pulled a duffel bag from behind a covered couch. Opened it. Knives. Rope. Tape. I saw my death in that moment. I saw my name in headlines. But then noise. A crash from the front of the house. A door slamming open. Heavy footsteps. "Police!" "Drop the weapon." Alex froze, then hissed through clenched teeth. A second later, the knife clattered to the ground. 2 officers burst into the room. One tackled him. The other ran to me, untying my wrists, checking my pulse. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded, barely. "He drugged me," I whispered. "He put something in my drink." They arrested him, took him away in cuffs. I sat in the back of an ambulance, wrapped in a blanket, shaking. Later, I learned the restaurant owner had seen Alex spike my wine while I was in the bathroom. They called the cops, tracked his phone, followed us. He had done it before. Twice. One survivor. One still missing. Alex went to prison. I went to therapy. I moved apartments. Got a restraining order. Bought pepper spray and a home security system. It took months before I could go on a date again. Even longer to drink a glass of wine without second guessing. But I survived. And I learned. Romance doesn't always wear a red flag. Sometimes it wears a navy blazer and a smile that hides a monster. You ever fall for someone who didn't even exist? I did. And I hate how true that sentence is. It started on a random Tuesday night. I was half bored, half hopeful, swiping through Tinder while ignoring a mountain of adult responsibilities. I wasn't expecting anything real. I rarely did anymore. But then I saw her. Davina. She had that kind of beauty that stopped me mid-swipe. Long, dark waves of hair that looked like they belonged in a shampoo commercial. A magnetic smile. Green eyes that seemed to look right through the screen and into your soul. Her profile bio. Witty, poetic, just a little bit moody. Photography, punk playlists, and perfect espresso. If you know who Mitski is, we're halfway there. I was intrigued. I swiped right. We matched instantly. And to my surprise, she messaged first. "Yo, obscure band shirt in photo number 2? Respect." That one sentence had me hooked. Over the next few days, our chats were electric. We talked for hours. It wasn't just surface-level flirting, it was connection. She told me she was a graphic designer freelancing for a startup. I told her I worked in marketing, but secretly wanted to write full-time. We swapped Spotify links. She sent me photos of her work, moody, abstract stuff with just the right amount of grit. I was impressed. We shared our favorite sad songs. We confessed our weirdest fears. And maybe most surprisingly, we got vulnerable. She told me she struggled with anxiety and sometimes disappeared from people when it got too heavy. I told her about my bouts with imposter syndrome and the way I sometimes felt like I was just pretending to be an adult. It felt real. It felt honest. So when she suggested we meet up for coffee that weekend, I said yes without hesitation. I even bought a new shirt. Saturday came, and I showed up 20 minutes early at the cafe we picked. Some quirky, artsy place downtown with mismatched furniture and latte art that looked like actual art. I grabbed a seat by the window, ordered a drink, and waited. Every time the door opened, I looked up. And then someone walked in. Not Davina. A guy. About my age. He looked nervous, kept glancing around. Our eyes met, and he walked straight toward me. "You waiting for Davina?" he asked, voice low, hands stuffed in the pockets of his hoodie. I blinked. "Yeah." He sat down across from me. "I'm Davina," he said. "Well, not really. My name's Alex." I stared at him, trying to make sense of what I was hearing. He didn't look anything like the person I'd been talking to. He didn't even sound like her. My brain scrambled to catch up. He started talking fast, like he was trying to say everything before I could get up and leave. The profile, it was fake. My friends and I made it as a prank. We run this YouTube channel, and we wanted to see if people would fall for a model's photos and a good story. But I didn't expect to actually connect with someone. And when I started talking to you, it stopped feeling like a joke. I felt bad. So I came to tell you. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. It felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. Like everything I thought had been real was suddenly just vapor. He kept talking. Something about how the girl in the photos was his cousin. How they'd used her Instagram with her permission. How they'd never planned to actually meet up with anyone. How I was the only one he'd felt guilty about. It didn't matter. I stood up, barely able to look at him. "I need to go," I said. He tried to say something else, but I was already walking out the door. Outside, the city noise felt like static. I wandered aimlessly for a while, trying to process. I felt stupid, angry, violated. I'd opened up to someone who didn't even exist. And it hurt. When I got home, I locked the door behind me and sat on the couch in silence. I scrolled through our old messages, realizing how carefully I'd been manipulated. The details, the timing, the emotional hooks. It wasn't just a prank. It was calculated. I deleted the Tinder app in a rage. But the damage had already been done. I never thought my Friday night Tinder date would end with me chasing a thief down the street, but that's exactly what happened last week. It started with just another evening swiping through profiles while half watching reruns of a comfort show. I wasn't expecting much. Maybe a decent conversation, maybe a laugh. But then I matched with Rob. We matched. Our chats were easy, flowing in that rare way where there are no awkward pauses or forced small talk. Rob told me he worked as a software engineer, mostly from home, and filled his weekends with trail hikes and thrift store hauls. I told him about my job in marketing and my obsession with trying every new cafe in the city. We bonded over our mutual love of obscure music playlists and sarcastic memes. After 3 days of talking, he suggested we meet in person. Coffee, he wrote. I know a little place that has the best almond croissants in town. We agreed to meet that Friday at a cozy cafe called Hazel and Rye. I'd been there before. It had a relaxed vibe, mellow lighting, and a quiet back corner perfect for first dates. I arrived 10 minutes early, as I always do, and ordered a drink to calm my nerves. I chose a table by the window and kept an eye on the door. When Rob walked in, I recognized him right away. He looked just like his photos, tall, dark hair, dressed in a casual button-down and jeans. He smiled with that same hint of mischief that had drawn me in online. Hey, he said, sliding into the seat across from me. Glad you came. His voice was smooth and confident. We exchanged a few pleasantries and ordered our drinks. He opted for an Americano, no sugar, and I stuck with my usual oat milk latte. At first, everything felt fine. We talked about work, recent Netflix binges, and the weirdly warm weather. Rob told me about a recent camping trip he took with friends and showed me a few photos on his phone. Mountains, a bonfire, someone's dog in a ridiculous sweater. But about 20 minutes in, things started to shift. Rob became distracted. He kept glancing toward the door, then back at me. His eyes darted around the cafe, like he was searching for someone. His answers to my questions became shorter, more abrupt. I asked him if everything was okay. Yeah, he said, waving it off. Just a long day. I tried to steer the conversation back to something light, but his focus was clearly elsewhere. His energy had changed, and a weird tension hung in the air. I started wondering if he was regretting the date, or maybe had somewhere else to be. I thought about wrapping it up early. Then, without warning, he stood up. Excuse me, he mumbled. I need to use the restroom. He walked past me, and as he did, I felt a slight tug at my side. It took a split second to register, but then everything clicked. My purse was gone. I turned just in time to see Rob, if that was even his real name, bolting for the door, my purse clutched under his arm. For a moment, I was frozen in shock. Then instinct took over. I shoved my chair back, nearly knocking it over, and ran after him. Stop him! I yelled, but the few customers in the cafe just stared, confused. Adrenaline surged through me as I burst out onto the sidewalk. Rob was already half a block away, weaving through pedestrians. I tore after him, my heart pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears. I dodged people, shouted for help, but no one moved. I wasn't thinking. I wasn't scared. I was furious. We sped down 2 blocks, and I realized I was gaining on him. He kept glancing back, his movements frantic. Then he made a sharp turn into a narrow alley between 2 buildings. I followed. The alley was a dead end. Rob turned to face me, breathing hard, eyes wild. Give me my purse, I said, my voice shaking with rage. He didn't move. Then footsteps. 2 men ran into the alley, strangers who had seen the chase. One was holding a phone mid-call. Behind them, a police officer hurried into view, hand on his belt. Rob's shoulders slumped. He dropped the purse to the ground and raised his hands. The officer stepped forward, cuffed him, and read him his rights while I stood there, trying to catch my breath, my body still shaking with adrenaline. The next hour was a blur. I gave my statement. The officer asked me to describe the entire encounter, from our Tinder messages to the moment he grabbed my bag. I handed over the chat logs still on my phone. They bagged my purse as evidence to be dusted for prints, then returned it after a quick check. Miraculously, everything was still inside: phone, wallet, keys. I walked home instead of getting a ride. I needed the air. Needed to process. When I got home, I collapsed on the couch and called my best friend, blurting out the whole story between gasps of laughter and tears. She showed up within 30 minutes, armed with ice cream and wine. Over the next few days, things moved quickly. I went to the police station to give a formal statement and identified Rob, whose real name was Ronan Jush, in a photo lineup. I learned he had a record. He'd pulled similar stunts before, using dating apps to meet women and steal from them. A week later, a detective called to tell me Ronan had been charged with multiple counts of theft and fraud. He'd pleaded guilty. It should have made me feel better, and in some ways it did. But part of me still felt shaken, violated, angry at myself for not seeing through him. I replayed our conversation in my head 100 times. I saw the red flags I'd brushed off, the nervous glances, the abrupt change in energy, the way he seemed to be scanning the cafe. I'd always thought I was careful, smart, a good judge of character, but that night showed me how easily someone can pretend. Still, I was proud of myself, for running after him, for not freezing, for refusing to be a victim. I took a break from dating apps for a while. I deleted Tinder. I changed my passwords and made sure my credit cards weren't compromised. I even bought a small can of pepper spray to keep in my bag. 3 days after I blocked James, I spotted a black Honda Civic parked across from my apartment building. I didn't think much of it at first. Plenty of people parked on my street. But then I saw him. James. He was in the driver's seat, wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled up, staring directly at my building. I froze, my keys halfway to the lock. My fingers trembled as I shoved the door open and slammed it shut behind me, bolting it with shaking hands. I peeked through the peephole, then through the curtain of my window. He was still there. For a while, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he had friends in the neighborhood. Maybe it was just a coincidence. But over the next several days, the black Civic kept showing up. Sometimes it would be parked near my building in the morning when I left for work. Other times I'd see it near the shopping center, or even outside a friend's house after dinner. Always there. Always watching. I stopped going to my usual gym. I changed my routes home. I started using ride shares instead of walking, even for short distances. But somehow, James always seemed to know where I was. The worst part was the silence. He didn't try to call or message me. He never approached me directly. He just watched, like he was waiting for something. Then one morning, while standing in line at a local cafe near my office, he appeared beside me. "Hey," he said, like nothing had happened. Wow, what a coincidence. My heart started pounding. I could barely breathe. He was standing too close, his body angled toward mine, his eyes locked onto my face like he was studying every expression. I tried to leave, mumbling something about being late, but he grabbed my wrist, hard. "We need to talk," he said, his grip tightening. I yanked my arm, but he didn't let go. "Sir, let go of her," the barista said sharply. "She had been watching us. Or I'm calling the police." James hesitated, then slowly released my wrist. His eyes narrowed as he glared at the barista, then back at me. Without another word, he turned and walked out. I filed a police report that afternoon. The officer who took my statement nodded sympathetically, but explained that unless James made a direct threat or harmed me physically, there wasn't much they could do. "Document everything," he said. "Keep a record. If he escalates, call us." I felt helpless. I started sleeping with a baseball bat beside my bed. I put security bars on my windows. I installed a camera above my front door. But nothing made me feel safe. Then one night, I woke up to a sound I'll never forget, the slow, deliberate scratching of fingernails across my bedroom window. I froze. My room was dark. My curtains were drawn. I reached for my phone with trembling hands and dialed 911. When I peeked through the edge of the curtain, James's face was there, pressed against the glass, smiling. I screamed. By the time the police arrived, he was gone. They searched the neighborhood, but found nothing. That night, they finally took things seriously. They increased patrols in my area. They advised me to stay somewhere else for a while. I moved in with my older brother, Marcus. Marcus was the complete opposite of James, big, broad-shouldered, fiercely protective. He worked construction and had a quiet intensity that made people think twice before crossing him. I didn't tell him everything at first, just enough to explain why I was staying with him. But one night, after I received yet another message from a new number, "I see you," I broke down and told him everything. Marcus didn't yell. He didn't panic. He just nodded, stood up, and said, "I'll handle it." I tried to protest, but he was already grabbing his keys. "Where are you going?" I asked. "To find him." I stayed up all night, sick with worry. Around 2 a.m., Marcus returned. His knuckles were raw and split. There was a bruise forming on his cheek. "What did you do?" I asked, horrified. "He won't be bothering you anymore," Marcus said flatly. "Don't ask me for details." Later, I learned from a mutual friend that James had been seen stumbling out of a local dive bar, his nose broken, his ribs cracked. After that night, he disappeared. No more texts. No more parked cars. No more sightings. It was over. I stayed with Marcus for another month, slowly rebuilding my sense of safety. I changed my phone number, deleted all my social media accounts, switched gyms. I even changed my hair color, hoping it would help me feel like a new version of myself, someone James wouldn't recognize. But even then, the fear lingered. I'd wake up in the middle of the night, convinced I heard tapping on the window. I'd double and triple check the locks before bed. I carried pepper spray everywhere I went. At work, I kept my office door closed and avoided walking alone to the parking lot. My friends were supportive. My family checked in constantly. But no one really understood the kind of anxiety that comes from being hunted. 6 months passed. No sign of James. I began to let my guard down just a little. I started sleeping through the night again. I went out with friends. I even opened Tinder once or twice, though I never swiped. I wasn't ready for that. Eventually, I moved back into my apartment. I'd missed my space, my books, my routines. I installed new locks, bought heavier curtains. My brother came over every other day to check in. Slowly, I started to feel like myself again. One day, I looked out my window and saw a black Honda Civic drive by. My heart stopped, but it kept going. Just a regular car. Not him. I still look over my shoulder sometimes. I still scan parking lots. I still flinch when I hear unexpected footsteps behind me. But those moments are becoming rarer. I even started dating again. Carefully. I meet only in public places. I always tell a friend where I'm going. I trust my instincts, and if anything feels off, I walk away, no apologies. I never thought a Tinder match would turn my life upside down, but that's exactly what happened last summer. It all started on a humid July evening. I was lounging on my couch, half watching a documentary and half scrolling through Tinder. I then stumbled across James. He wasn't like the others. He just looked normal and pleasant. I swiped right. We matched within minutes. Our conversation started like most, light banter, shared interests, the usual "what do you do?" and "what kind of music are you into?" But something about James made me want to keep talking. We clicked. He had a knack for asking questions that actually made me think, not just surface-level stuff, but real, thoughtful things. We talked about our favorite travel destinations, our mutual love of photography, and even weirdly specific things like our favorite types of clouds. I found myself smiling at my phone more than I had in months. After a few days of messaging, James suggested we meet in person. "Let's grab coffee," he wrote. "There's this place downtown I love, great lattes and even better people watching." I hesitated for a second. I'd never been on a Tinder date before, but something about James made me feel at ease. We agreed to meet on Saturday afternoon, 2 p.m., at a cafe called The Daily Grind. That morning, I took extra time getting ready, not because I was trying to impress him necessarily, but because I was genuinely excited. I picked out my favorite sundress, swiped on a bit of mascara, and left early to calm my nerves. I arrived at the cafe about 10 minutes ahead of schedule, found a table near the window, and ordered a vanilla latte. I kept checking my phone, watching the time creep closer to 2 o'clock. My stomach fluttered with a mix of nerves and anticipation. I glanced up every time the door opened, wondering if it would be him. At 2:03, James walked in. He looked exactly like his photos, which was a relief. Tall, athletic build, tousled dark hair, denim jacket, and that same disarming smile. But as he scanned the room and walked toward me, something felt off. His eyes were darting around the cafe, like he was checking for someone or something. When he spotted me, he smiled, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. It felt forced, like he was trying to remember how to act normal. Still, I stood to greet him and offered a handshake, which he turned into a brief hug. His hug lingered slightly too long for a first meeting, and I could feel the tension in his body. His hands were trembling as he held onto mine for a second too long before sitting down. "Hey," he said, his voice smooth but a little shaky. "You look even better in person." "Thanks," I replied, trying to keep the mood light. "It's nice to finally meet you." We settled into conversation, and at first, it flowed easily. We talked about our weeks, the cafe's quirky decor, and how unbearably hot the weather had been. But then James started asking odd questions, specific ones. He asked where I worked, what floor my office was on, which gym I went to, and what time I usually got there. When I gave vague answers, he'd press for more. "Oh, which location? The one on Main, or the one near the park? Do you go in the morning or evenings?" It was subtle at first, but the pattern became clear. James wasn't just making conversation, he was collecting details. My stomach tightened. I tried to steer the conversation towards safer topics, but he kept circling back. I glanced at the time. Only 30 minutes had passed, but it felt like hours. I made up an excuse, something about needing to meet friends for an early dinner, and stood up. "Already?" he asked, disappointment flashing in his eyes. "Yeah, sorry, it was a last-minute thing," I lied, grabbing my purse. He stood too and reached out for a hug. Again, he held on longer than necessary. His arms didn't feel warm or comforting, they felt like a trap. "Let me walk you to your car," he offered. "No, that's okay," I said quickly. "I'm just around the corner." He looked like he wanted to insist, but eventually stepped back. "Okay, text me when you get home." I nodded, even though I had no intention of doing so. As soon as I turned the corner, I blocked him on Tinder. I thought that would be the end of it, but it wasn't. Okay, so I'll be real. I didn't swipe right on Zane because of his stellar bio or shared interests in foreign cinema. I swiped because he was hot. Like sinfully hot. You know what I mean, the smoldering eyes, a jawline carved by the gods, and a smile that hinted at just enough trouble to be interesting. His profile said something vague about loving deep convos and late-night drives, which basically translated to, "I'm mysterious and maybe emotionally unavailable." But I wasn't exactly looking for a husband. I was bored, freshly waxed, and curious. Our messages were spicy from the start, light teasing, flirty jokes, the kind of banter that makes you bite your lip while reading. He had a sharp sense of humor, told me he worked in consulting, which sounded fake, but I didn't press. Honestly, I was more interested in his photos. One was of him shirtless at a beach in Ibiza. Another showed him in a tailored suit holding a whiskey glass. He looked like the kind of guy who knew how to ruin your life in the best way. After a few days of hot exchanges and some borderline PG-13 voice notes, he asked if I wanted to go see a movie. "Something action-packed," he said. "I'll buy the snacks if you bring that energy." I laughed, said yes, and picked out my favorite skinny jeans and a low-cut top that made my collarbones look like they had their own storyline. We met outside the cinema, and oh my god, he was even more gorgeous in person. He had this confident strut, a soft leather jacket, and a cologne that made me temporarily forget my own name. He hugged me hello, and his hand lingered just a second too long at my lower back. I was already planning the second date in my head. We got popcorn, soda, and candy. He insisted on buying everything, which I appreciated. Inside the theater, the lights dimmed, and we found seats in the middle row. The movie started, but I was way more interested in the vibe between us. The occasional brush of his arm against mine, his low chuckle at the film's dumb jokes. At one point, his fingers grazed my thigh, and I didn't move them away. And then the entire date imploded. About 20 minutes into the movie, I noticed movement near the back of the theater. A group of people slipped in quietly, but they weren't regular moviegoers. They were in uniform. Police. At least 4 of them. I felt my stomach twist. I looked at Zane, who was suddenly very still. He noticed them too. His jaw clenched. His hands curled into fists at his sides. Then, like a scene from a movie within the movie, the cops surrounded our row. One of them called out his name. "Zayn Malik, stand up." Zane froze. So did I. I said stand up. Now. Zane slowly rose from his seat. The theater was dead silent. People were turning in their seats, whispering. He looked down at me, his eyes wide, filled with disbelief and something else, fear. The officer handcuffed him right there in front of me. I just sat there, popcorn in my lap, mouth open, trying to make sense of what was happening. Was this some kind of prank? As they were escorting him out, one of the officers turned to me and asked, "Are you okay? Did he hurt you?" I blinked. "No. We were just watching a movie." He gave me a brief nod and followed the others out. The lights in the theater didn't come back on. The movie kept playing, but I couldn't focus. I stared at the screen, my heart racing, my mind spinning. Who the hell had I just let touch my thigh? Eventually, I left the theater, still dazed. Outside, a small crowd had gathered. Police cars, flashing lights, the whole deal. I saw Zane, or whatever his real name was, being loaded into the back of a squad car. He glanced at me, eyes full of something between apology and resignation. I didn't wave. I didn't say a word. I just walked away.